For those of you out there who like fabric like I do, I'm Jan Howell from YouMakeItSimple.com. Today we're going to be going over how to fold, store, and organize your fabric pieces. Now I know there's a lot of different options out there, a lot of different ways that you can do this, but it just depends on, there's not really a wrong or a right way. It just depends on the space you have and your needs. Knowing what print you have, knowing what you have, and it'll take the stress out of your sewing. So I'm going to go over and give you several different options of ways that you can store your fabric, fold them nicely, and make your sewing room a place that you can be and enjoy and know where everything is. You're going to have a bunch of different sizes of fabric pieces to store. I'm going to show you tips on how to store even the smallest fabric scraps in a color coordinated way that makes them accessible when you're piecing something together, up to a lot of yardage, 4 to 6 yards of fabric or whatever you like to store. I'm going to show you different ways that you can do that, different options depending on what you have available. Let's start with the small scraps of fabric. So I'm all about recycling, as you know, and I'm all about using up almost every little piece of fabric. But little pieces of fabric can be hard to store because you put them in a bin. Like I used to put these all just in a bin, and whenever I needed something, I had to sit and look through it, trying to find a certain color of blue or green. It just made things stressful. So how I do it now is I take pieces that are too little, too small to fold on a fat quarter bolt, which I'll get to that. I take the large zip bags and sort them in different colors so that when I need like a green print, I'll grab my greens and look through there and find something, knowing that they're just going to be small pieces. It works really well. Like this piece right here would be probably go in my pink bag. Bright orange or yellow bag would work. And then I just put them in a bin like this. You could put them in a drawer, you could put them in a closet, a box, just a normal box. I like the bins because I can see it, and I label the bin with the scraps. I have different boxes and different bins for knit fabric. This is just all my woven fabrics that I'm storing this way. Now let's move on to the bigger pieces of fabric, like a fat quarter. Now I know there's still a small piece of fabric, but they are bigger, and it is nice to have them displayed like this so you can see. And knowing that they're about that size, knowing you'll know how much you have to work with. This is an idea. You can just use a regular box, but I have found these plastic bins that actually are for the freezer or the refrigerator storage, but I really like how they look on my shelves. It's the perfect size. So what I have done is I use, for my bigger scraps, and we'll go over this in just a minute, I use comic book boards, and there's several different sizes, but I have found this size works best for me. For my bigger pieces, the 10.5 inches by 6 7/8 inches. And then for my fat quarters or my smaller pieces, I cut a bunch of them in half and then have them ready for when I'm folding. When you buy a new piece, all you have to do is, let me show you what you do. So I know there's a lot of different fancy ways to fold them, and I've tried them, but this method works the best for me because it fits the size of fabric, and not all of the pieces, small pieces that I have, are fat quarters. So if they're just smaller, this method works really well. So you find the selvage edge, which is the finished edge, and this is the cut edge. I fold the cut edge up to the selvage edge, and then I flatten it out, and then I fold it in half again. Take your cardboard. I like to have the cut side on the inside, and I just center it on the board and just start folding. Now you're going to have one side that won't fit all the way around, and you can fold it under if you really want to, but you could fold it under like that and then clip it. You can clip or you can pin. Now I used to use a pin, but there's so many times that I would go into my box to get my fabric and poke myself, and it's not pretty, especially when there's blood involved and you get blood on your fabric. Instead of using pins, I love and have found these alligator clips. They're little 1.5-inch plastic clips that are used for garment clips, but they work great for this. And apply a clip. You can use pins if you want. Like I say, just be careful that you're not going to poke yourself. Let me show you how I fold something like this that's not quite the size. It's a little bit longer than a fat quarter and not as wide. So there's different options. If we folded it like this, you'd have those excess on the bottom. Both of the edges up like so, and then wrap it. You don't want these little bolts to get too big because then it will be bulky in your box. So that's probably about the maximum that I would go on thickness for this small box. And look how cute and nice they look on my IKEA shelves. So we have the smaller and then the bigger, and then the bigger up on the left. Now, depending on the space that you have to store your folded fabrics, this is an IKEA shelf that I just recently put in. I really like it. It displays the fabric really nicely, and it fits the size of comic boards perfectly, and the top shelf gives me a little bit more space. So if you have shelves that are bigger, you can opt in. I'll show you several different ways to fold, but you can opt in where you have the bigger fold, or this, like I say, works perfectly. It keeps them upright. Another option is to put your fat quarters just in a simple drawer like this. That looks nice, it's organized, and a deeper drawer you could also put your bigger bolts of fabric in nicely, instead if you didn't want to put them on a shelf. So let's go over how to fold this size right here. Since my shelf is just a little bit too small, it's the size of these boards, you can't just fold it in half like most people do and then wrap it on your board. Now you can use this method if you want to store your little bolts in a bin like this, which is really doable, and this is how I used to do it before I have my cabinet. And this works really well for longer pieces of fabric that have more yardage. As you can see, this is pretty bulky. So that you can just fold it in half and then wrap your bolt. But if you have a smaller shelf like I do, and you want it to be folded so it fits, I have come up with this method and it works really well. Just get a table, find the end of the table. These are the long ends, and this is the short end of my table. So you can just stand here, and here is a tip and a trick that I have found that works really well to help keep it laying flat, so as I wrap it, it stays even. I've taken 2 of these boards a little bit further apart so I can, as I lay the fabric out, I can keep it straight. And I'm using my ruler along the edge to make sure that those are straight. And I just masking tape them in place. Get your stack of boards. I'll make sure and put the link in the description below for where I get these. There's not a particular one that I prefer. They are acid-free archival paper, so one side is coated and one side is glossy, and they work really well. So I have my stations set up. I have my boards, I have my alligator clips. If you're using pins, you don't even have to use anything, but they will unfold a little bit. It just keeps them in place a little bit better. So let me demonstrate on this shorter piece of fabric, and then I'll show you how to do a longer piece of fabric. So I have my selvage edges together, and instead of folding it in half like I said, I'm going to bring it up, fold it up just maybe a third of the way. Doesn't have to be exact. And just flatten it out, and then bring it and fold it down. This is where the boards come in handy. So it shows me how I like to leave about a 1/2 inch or more on each end. So you can just eyeball it that it's straight, and you can see that that's pretty straight with the boards underneath. Take a new board and center that on there. You don't want to fold all the way to the end, just about like that, and then just start folding. And don't wrap it too tight or the board will bow a little bit. We don't want that. And see that I have that much left over. I'm just going to, you can fold that under like that. Grab a clip. You can clip the top and the bottom if you want to, but I pretty much just do it all on the top. And then I set that down. So if you're doing, say, a bunch of fabric, just get your station set up, get some good music going, and fold away. Let me show you on a longer piece of fabric how that would work. This method works really well for fabric pieces, maybe anywhere from a 1/2 yard to up to 3 yards probably. And then I would want to go to the other method, folding it full length and then putting it in a bin. So I have, these are the salvaged edges already put together. I'm going to fold that up about a third of the way. Fold that end down. And see, what I like about the edge of the table is it helps the weight fold down. So as you roll, and it will just help keep that straight and fold it a little bit better as opposed to having it all on a flat surface. So I'm going to center that, eyeball this kind of has a pattern, so it kind of it's helpful. Slide that down, grab a card, and just start folding. What do you do with pieces of fabric that you have left over from projects that are still big enough to wrap on a bolt, but maybe look like this? I'm going to fold that in half and lie it flat. And then this little weird piece that's hanging out here, I'll just fold it over. And I'll fold that up just like I would on a normal piece of fabric, and fold this down, take my guide, and see where we're at as far as centering it. Grab your board. So look how nice that looks instead of just being folded all ski-wampus, and I still know that there's a good chunk of fabric on there that I can use. What about upcycled clothing fabric pieces? You can cut them out, get them as square as you can, and fold them up. For example, this is a pillowcase that I was buying pillowcases and sheets during the pandemic to make face masks because you couldn't get fabric. And so I have several pillowcases and pieces of sheets left over, and it's nice to be able to wrap those up on a bolt as well. So this is just a pillowcase, and I'm going to fold it just like I would a piece of fabric and get it on a bolt. Then I know I have a nice piece of brown cotton fabric to use for my other projects. So what do you do with the really big pieces of fabric? Your bulkier fabrics like corduroy, canvas, upholstery fabrics, what do you do with those? You can't really roll those on a bolt and put them on a shelf. What I do is I fold them up nicely, and I've even been known to buy the whole bolt of fabric. Who would think? But so if I have a bolt of fabric, I get these long bins and I put bolts of fabric in here. I do that a lot with flannel pieces when it goes on sale around Christmas time. And so I'll have bolts of fabric. Now I don't have like a ton of this stuff. Like, don't think I'm like have my own fabric store or anything, but you do need a place to store bigger pieces of fabric. These are all my upholstery fabrics, my corduroy, vinyl, some big pieces of vinyl that I have. And so as you can see, I just fold them up and put them in here like this. And that works great. You want to label the outside of what's in there. And my upcycled sweater bins, that's another tutorial. We'll go over that, and I have a tutorial on that as well, of how to felt and store your fabric, your upcycled felted wool pieces. So you can check that out if you want to too. So I know a lot of you are going to ask about where I got this cabinet. It's an IKEA cabinet. It's a Billy cabinet. You can get the Billy shelves, just the Billy shelves. This is a tall one. I love IKEA, and I go there whenever I can. I live a ways away, but I use a lot of their furniture. And in my last sewing room makeover, I show you some different things that I was able to get there. But this is, you can get this Billy cabinet with doors or without. You can get glass in the top and the bottom, or you can get doors with no glass at all. But I like exposing some and being able to hide some of the things that you don't want down here maybe later. So that's what I have opted in on storing my new pieces. I'm not affiliated with IKEA at all, but I know some of you will want to know where you can get this cute little cabinet. I hope you found that helpful. I encourage you to go through your fabric stash, whatever condition it's in, find what works for you, get folding. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do that. Click on the bell to be notified when I put new things up. Have a wonderful day. Have fun sewing, have fun organizing. We'll see you next time.